the announcement that shattered the silence. In a move that has the palace whispering betrayal, Prince William is abandoning his family home and openly defying his father, the king. The official story is a lie, and the real reason for this shocking escape is a secret that threatens to destabilize the entire crown. A thunderclap ripped through the gilded halls of the British monarchy, a shockwave emanating not from a political crisis, but from a deceptively simple press release. Kensington Palace, the polished PR machine behind the Prince and Princess of Wales, was forced to confirm a piece of stunning news that sent the royal family spiraling. Prince William and Princess Catherine were abandoning Adelaide Cottage, their so-called idyllic Windsor retreat. This wasn't just a change of address, it was a seismic shift in the landscape of the crown, a move so audacious it defied centuries of tradition. The public reaction was one of immediate and profound confusion. It was only 2 years ago that the couple had uprooted their lives from the 20-room London fortress of Kensington Palace, trading it for the quaint, 4-bedroom cottage. The official story was a heartwarming tale of duty and family, a desire to be closer to the ailing Queen Elizabeth II in her final years, and to give their 3 children a semblance of a normal, private life. It was a narrative the world had eagerly consumed, painting the future king and queen as selfless parents willing to sacrifice grandeur for normalcy. But now, with the queen gone and that chapter brutally closed, they were on the move again. The palace's chilling silence on the reason why fueled a wildfire of speculation. Why would a couple so obsessed with crafting an image of stability and calm inflict another jarring upheaval on their young family? Had the once perfect cottage suddenly become a gilded prison, or were the whispers true that the pressures brewing within the heart of Windsor, the very seat of the monarchy, had become too toxic to bear? The statement was meant to quell rumors, but it did the opposite. It was a match thrown on gasoline. It blew the doors wide open on a royal family in turmoil, revealing deep, festering cracks in the monarchy's flawless public facade. The carefully constructed image of a united front was shattering in real time. For a monarchy that survives on mystique and the illusion of unwavering continuity, this unexplained, erratic move felt like a betrayal. The public began to wonder what dark truth was being hidden behind the cold, impersonal walls of the palace, and the answer, it seemed, was far more shocking than anyone could have imagined. In the court of public opinion, the verdict was swift and merciless. On social media, in the headlines of every newspaper, and in hushed conversations across Britain, a single question echoed with damning intensity: what were they hiding? The initial move to Adelaide Cottage had been sold to the world as the final, perfect step in a carefully constructed fairy tale. It was pitched as the ultimate sacrifice for family, a noble retreat from the flashbulbs of London so their children could have a whisper of a normal life. The public had bought into the narrative of William and Catherine as the modern royals, the ones who put their children above the ancient, gilded traditions of the crown. But this new, unexplained move felt like a betrayal of that narrative. It reeked of instability, of a hidden crisis festering behind closed doors. Royal watchers, once the couple's staunchest defenders, were now the ones voicing the sharpest concerns. Had they been lied to? Was the entire Windsor experiment a fraud from the very beginning? The painstakingly crafted narrative of a humble, down-to-earth future king and queen was unraveling with devastating speed. The cottage, once a symbol of their relatability, was now being painted as what it likely always was: a temporary stopgap, a prop in a much larger, more secretive game. The very image they had spent a decade cultivating, one of serene domesticity and unwavering duty, was now being dismantled by their own hand. The public felt duped, and their adoration, once a given, quickly curdled into a bitter, resentful suspicion. William and Catherine had always been masters of public perception, but for the first time, it seemed they had made a catastrophic miscalculation. The chilling silence from the palace wasn't seen as dignified, it was seen as damning. And in that void, the darkest rumors began to take root, whispered from the highest echelons of society down to the local pubs, rumors of a fractured family, a prince in rebellion, and a crisis so profound it threatened to tear the monarchy apart. While the public grappled with confusion, a far more dangerous storm was brewing within the palace walls. Here, the murmurs were not of concern, but of strategic analysis and raw, simmering distrust. Kensington Palace's curt confirmation was a world away from the eerie, stony silence emanating from Buckingham Palace, the seat of King Charles III's new and already fragile power. In the opulent corridors of the king's court, aides trained in the art of secrecy exchanged knowing, worried glances. The official story was insultingly thin, a simple family matter, a need for more space. But no one believed it for a second. Insiders began to whisper of a deep and growing rift, of a strategic repositioning by Prince William to carve out his own sphere of influence, free from the long imposing shadow of his father. They saw the move not as a search for privacy, but as a declaration of intent, a quiet but forceful rebellion against the new king's reign. The decision to abandon Adelaide Cottage, a home nestled so close to the heart of Windsor Castle, was seen by many courtiers as a direct and calculated snub to the king and queen Camilla. It was a physical and symbolic distancing, a clear signal that the heir to the throne would not be governed by the traditions his father held so sacred. He was, in effect, building his own court, his own center of power, just a stone's throw away from his father's. The palace tried desperately to contain the narrative, but the truth, as it always does in those hallowed halls, began to leak out. This wasn't a family choosing a new home. This was a prince drawing a line in the sand. The move to a new, private fortress was a power play, a strategic masterstroke in a generational war for control, and it threatened to destabilize a monarchy already reeling from loss and profound uncertainty. To understand the sheer audacity of this new chapter, one must rewind to the summer of 2022, to the move that started it all. William and Kate's departure from apartment 1 Ampere at Kensington Palace was, in itself, a shocking break from protocol. For years, the glittering 20-room apartment had been their London command centre, the very epicenter of their royal lives. To abandon it for a humble 4-bedroom cottage felt like a dramatic and public demotion, a tactical retreat from the front line of royal duty. But beneath the surface, the decision was laden with a tragic and strategic weight the public was never meant to comprehend. The monarchy was buckling under the finality of Queen Elizabeth II's fading health. The move to Windsor was an act of love, yes, but it was also one of grim, heartbreaking necessity. They needed to be close, to stand vigil by the matriarch's side in her twilight hours, to absorb her strength one last time, and to allow their children a final chance to know the woman behind the crown. Adelaide Cottage, with its convenient proximity to Windsor Castle, offered them this final, precious connection. But even then, insiders knew it was a fatal compromise. The cottage was a temporary solution to an unbearable problem, a place haunted by the impending sense of loss. It was an experiment born of desperation, a test to see if they could function outside the suffocating, all-seeing embrace of London. From day one, it was a home built on borrowed time, a beautiful stage for a tragedy whose final act was already written. It was overshadowed by the spectre of death and the crushing weight of a destiny that was fast approaching. The move to Adelaide Cottage was never about finding a forever home. It was about managing an ending. The driving force behind the initial escape to Windsor was Princess Catherine, a woman who had come to see Kensington Palace not as a home, but as a golden prison. In London, she was trapped in a fishbowl. Every stroll in the garden, every trip to the park, was a performance for the ravenous tabloid press. She lived in constant, gnawing fear that the city's relentless scrutiny would devour her children before they even had a chance to live. For Catherine, Windsor represented a fragile, fleeting taste of freedom. Behind the ancient gates of the Windsor estate, her children could finally be children. The endless green fields and the relative anonymity of Lambrook School offered a brief respite from the crushing burden of their titles. It was a world of muddy boots and schoolyard games, a stark, beautiful contrast to the sterile, ceremonial existence that awaited them in London. Adelaide Cottage was Catherine's desperate answer to the question that haunted her. How could she possibly raise an ordinary family in the most extraordinary of circumstances? But it was a flawed sanctuary from the start. Insiders revealed that while the princess cherished the privacy from the press, the cottage itself was too small, too insecure, and far too exposed to the inner workings of the Windsor court. It was a barrier against the photographers, but it offered no protection from the suffocating politics of the monarchy itself. The whispers, the expectations, and the constant presence of the royal machine were inescapable. The cruel irony was that in her desperate flight from one prison, Catherine had simply led her family into another, smaller, and in some ways, more claustrophobic one. The move to Adelaide Cottage was, from its inception, a deathbed vigil. As Queen Elizabeth II's health declined, The 1-hour drive from London felt like an insurmountable distance. William and Catherine were haunted by the need to be near her, to ensure that the woman who had defined the modern crown, the steady hand on the tiller for 70 years, would not spend her final days alone. Adelaide Cottage became their forward operating base in a desperate war against time, a place where they could be grandchildren and great-grandchildren first, and the future of the monarchy a distant second. But after the Queen's death in September 2022, the cottage's very reason for being vanished into the cold autumn air. The home they had chosen as a sanctuary became a mausoleum overnight. Grief, thick and suffocating, permeated its hallways. Every room held a memory of the woman they had lost, and the terrible, deafening absence of her presence was a constant, aching reminder of their new reality. The children, Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis, were forced to comprehend the brutal meaning of loss far too young, in a house that was now defined by it. Living at Adelaide Cottage became unbearable. It was like living among ghosts. The proximity to Windsor Castle, once a source of comfort and connection, now felt like a curse. It was a constant reminder of their duty, of the crushing weight of the crown that William would one day inherit, and of the profound, unfillable void left by the Queen's passing. The cottage was no longer a refuge. It was a trigger, a place where the pain of their loss was raw and inescapable. They had to get out. As the walls of Adelaide Cottage began to close in, a wave of frenzied speculation crashed over the royal press corps. One name above all others dominated the headlines: Fort Belvedere. The very mention of the estate sent a chill through the royal establishment. This was no ordinary royal residence. Its walls were stained with the indelible shame of the 1936 abdication crisis. It was here, within its secluded grounds, that King Edward VIII made the fateful, catastrophic decision to give up the throne for Wallis Simpson, the American divorcee who brought the monarchy to its knees. For decades, Fort Belvedere was considered a cursed place, a monument to dereliction of duty and scandalous betrayal. Yet, the idea of William and Catherine, the very embodiment of duty and tradition, reclaiming this fallen fortress, was a narrative too tantalizing for the press to ignore. Could the future king and queen exorcise the demons of the past? Could they transform a place of profound scandal into a symbol of renewal? It was a blockbuster story of redemption, of a new generation bravely healing the deepest, most shameful scars of the monarchy's history. Within the palace, however, the idea was met with absolute horror. Courtiers whispered that it would be a disastrous omen, a terrible provocation of fate, to raise the future king in a home so intrinsically linked to selfishness and deception. The ghosts of Edward and Wallis, they argued, were not to be disturbed. To them, Fort Belvedere wasn't just a house. It was a tombstone marking the grave of a king who chose love over country, and its dark energy was something the modern monarchy could not afford to resurrect. The public was utterly captivated by the drama of Fort Belvedere. Royal forums debated endlessly. Some saw it as the perfect solution, a grand estate that offered the privacy the Wales family so desperately craved, combined with a powerful story of historical reclamation. To them, the move seemed lyrical and courageous, a clear sign that William and Catherine were not afraid to confront the monarchy's darkest and most painful chapters head-on. Others, however, saw it as a fool's errand, an unforgivable flirtation with the crown's most painful memory. The thought of the pinnacle of duty, the future King William, inhabiting the home of the man who so spectacularly abandoned his duty, felt like a dangerous provocation. It was a warning that history could repeat itself in the most terrifying of ways. The debate quickly became a cultural referendum on the future of the monarchy itself. Could it modernize without erasing the bitter lessons of its past? Inside the palace, the opposition was fierce and unyielding. The senior royals, particularly those who remembered the devastation of the abdication, viewed Fort Belvedere as toxic ground. For them, it was not a piece of real estate. It was the scene of a crime against the crown. Allowing the heir to the throne to live there would be seen as a tacit endorsement of Edward VIII's catastrophic betrayal. In the end, the weight of history proved too much. Despite the media frenzy, the dream of Fort Belvedere was always a forbidden one, a tantalizing fantasy that was ultimately crushed by the unshakable, unforgiving memory of a fallen king. While the world debated the fate of cursed castles, a more practical and urgent pressure was building within Adelaide Cottage. Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis were no longer small children waving from balconies. They were growing fast and their needs were changing. The cottage, once celebrated for its cozy intimacy, now felt suffocatingly small. Royal observers began to ask pointed, uncomfortable questions. Could such humble circumstances truly nurture a future monarch? Was the heir to the British throne really doing his homework at the kitchen table? These seemingly simple questions carried profound and dangerous implications. They exposed the painful truth that the Wales family's experiment in normality had failed. They could not pretend to be an ordinary family, not when the destiny of the nation rested on their children's shoulders. The demands of their future, the need for increased security, for a full retinue of staff, and for an environment befitting their rapidly escalating status, were becoming impossible to ignore. For William and Catherine, the cottage had transformed from a sanctuary into a cage. It was a constant, mocking reminder of the simple life they couldn't have, and the inescapable, crushing duties that lay just ahead. Every day, the pressure mounted. The charming country life they had so desperately sought had become a trap, a beautiful prison of their own making, and the need for an escape was no longer a desire, but a matter of sheer survival. They were outgrowing their dream, and reality was closing in with brutal force. Then, out of nowhere, the wild speculation ended. Kensington Palace released a terse, cold confirmation that stopped every royal reporter in their tracks. It was a bombshell that no one, not even the most seasoned royal insiders, saw coming. After months of feverish debate about historic, scandal-ridden estates, the future king and queen were not moving into a famous landmark. They were moving to a place called Royal Lodge. The property was so discreet, so utterly absent from the public consciousness, that even experienced royal journalists were forced to scramble for their maps. In a single, stunning moment, Royal Lodge went from a forgotten footnote in the Crown's vast property portfolio to the most talked-about home in the world. The sheer obscurity of the choice was a breathtaking power move. This wasn't a fortress steeped in centuries of history or a grand palace with gilded gates. It was a private, almost hidden residence on the Windsor estate. And that, it turned out, was precisely the point. For centuries, the monarchy had been defined by the magnificent, overwhelming spectacle of Buckingham Palace and the ancient, brooding grandeur of Windsor Castle. By choosing Royal Lodge, William and Catherine were consciously, deliberately, and ruthlessly rejecting it all. They were turning their backs on the pomp and pageantry that had defined royal life for generations, and in doing so, they were making a statement so bold, so audacious, that it bordered on open rebellion against the king himself. It was a declaration of war fought with real estate. The choice of Royal Lodge was a direct and unprecedented assault on tradition. Buckingham Palace is not just a residence, it is the administrative and ceremonial heart of the nation, the ultimate symbol of monarchical power. To turn away from it was to turn away from the very essence of the institution. Windsor Castle, so beloved by the late Queen, is a bastion of continuity, a fortress that has stood as a symbol of resilience through war and crisis. William and Catherine rejected them both. The message was unmistakable. They would not be defined by buildings. They were forging a new kind of monarchy, one where family and survival took precedence over spectacle and cold formality. Critics were aghast. To them, this was an abdication of a different kind, an abdication of majesty itself. They argued that, by stripping away the grandeur, William and Catherine were diminishing the crown's mystique, reducing it to just another wealthy family, notable but no longer magnificent. The move was seen as a dangerous dilution of the royal brand, a fatal weakening of its power. But for their supporters, it was a long overdue breath of fresh air. They saw a couple brave enough to admit that the oppressive grandeur of palace life had destroyed too many royal lives before them. Royal Lodge, while large, is modest by royal standards. It was their canvas for a new, radical vision, a monarchy that could adapt, where duty and family could actually coexist, and where the dead weight of the past did not have to dictate the future. It was a revolution disguised as a real estate transaction. Beneath the strategic power plays and the shocking rejection of tradition lay a story that was deeply, tragically human. An insider revealed the truth in a single, devastating sentence. Moving gives them an opportunity for a fresh start. This was not about real estate. It was about clawing their lives back from the abyss of grief and suffocating expectation. The years leading up to this decision had been brutally cruel. The death of Prince Philip in 2021 had fractured the family, and the passing of Queen Elizabeth II in 2022 brought the nation to its knees, and left William and Catherine utterly adrift. Adelaide Cottage, chosen as a place of sanctuary, had become a house of sorrow. This was especially true for Catherine. Behind her stoic public smile, her recent health crisis had fueled a storm of global speculation and immense personal pressure. Her recovery demanded a true retreat, a place where she could heal without the constant, oppressive reminders of duty that Windsor Castle represented at every turn. Royal Lodge offered that peace. It was a place where she could rebuild her strength, away from the prying eyes of the world and the ghosts of their recent, devastating past. The move was a conscious, deliberate step away from their pain, a desperate search for a place where the laughter, which had been absent for so long, could finally, tentatively, return. It was an act of survival, plain and simple. For Prince William, the internal storm was just as fierce. Every day, he was forced to navigate the impossible, conflicting roles of grieving grandson, protective father, and future King of England. Adelaide Cottage, for all its charm, offered no separation between the man and the monarch. It was a place of both intense preparation and utter suffocation, where the weight of his young family and the crushing weight of the crown pressed down on him from all sides, threatening to break him. The death of his grandmother, the mentor and leader who had guided his entire life, had intensified his psychological burden beyond measure. His destiny, once a distant, abstract concept, was now a stark and immediate reality closing in around him. He needed more than a roof over his head. He needed a refuge, a fortress where he could simply be a father, a husband, and a son, without the constant, exhausting performance of being a prince. Adelaide Cottage was too entangled with sad memories and the crushing expectations of tradition. Royal Lodge symbolized a reset, a chance to build a fortress not just for his family, but for his own sanity. It was a deliberate act of self-preservation, a stark recognition that to one day wear the crown, he first had to survive the weight. He was discreetly building his own model of kingship, one defined by relatability and quiet resilience, not by the remote, cold spectacle of the palaces he was so determined to leave behind. This intensely personal decision was also a deeply political one, and its shockwaves would rock Buckingham Palace to its very core. In one of the most surprising twists, William and Catherine announced they would be funding all improvements to Royal Lodge with their own private funds. This was a masterstroke. For years, the monarchy has been plagued by public outrage over taxpayer money being used for lavish royal renovations. By refusing public funds, the Prince and Princess of Wales were sending a powerful message: we will not be a burden. They were demonstrating a modern, savvy understanding of accountability and public sentiment that set them miles apart from all previous generations. But their declaration of independence didn't stop there. Insiders confirmed that Royal Lodge would have no live-in staff. This was an unprecedented, almost unthinkable break from royal life. For centuries, the monarchy has depended on vast armies of butlers, maids, and aides whose lives were completely integrated into the service of the royals. William and Kate rejected this model entirely. They wanted a home, not an institution. They wanted the chaotic sounds of their children playing, not the silent, ghostly footsteps of servants in the hallways. It was a shocking admission that even the future King and Queen of England yearned for a normal, private existence, a life free from the constant, intrusive, and watchful presence of the firm. It was a quiet revolution, and it was just beginning. Such a bold action was bound to create enemies, and the move to Royal Lodge ripped through the royal family, exposing the deep, bitter divisions between the traditionalists and the modernizers. King Charles, sources claimed, was deeply uneasy with the timing. As he struggled to establish his own reign in the post-Elizabethan era, his heir was unilaterally rewriting the rules of the monarchy. Charles, a man who has dedicated his entire life to continuity, saw his son's rejection of the great palaces not as modernization, but as a direct and insulting challenge to his authority. It was a subtle act of disobedience that undermined the very foundations of the institution he now led. Queen Camilla was reportedly even more hurt. Having spent decades fighting for her place within the royal family, she viewed the move as a deeply personal slight. It was an implicit statement that she and Charles were the past, while William and Catherine were the future, a future they were pointedly building alone, on their own terms. But from another corner of the family came a whisper of approval. Princess Anne, the famously no-nonsense royal who despises pomp and ceremony, was said to have quietly supported her nephew's decision. She, more than anyone, understood that the monarchy needed to evolve beyond its gilded cage if it was to survive. Her silent backing highlighted the simmering war raging within the House of Windsor, a brutal, high-stakes battle for the very soul of the crown itself. The family was fracturing along generational lines, and the outcome of this conflict was anything but certain. The division extended beyond bloodlines, deep into the ranks of the royal staff. For generations, serving in the great palaces was a badge of honor, a lifetime commitment to an institution far greater than oneself. To many of these loyal servants, William and Catherine's decision to downsize and eliminate live-in staff felt like a devastating betrayal. They saw the very enterprise they had dedicated their lives to being diminished, their purpose and legacy casually discarded in the name of modernity. The move to Royal Lodge, with its smaller, more private footprint, was a signal that their kind of all-encompassing, lifelong service was no longer valued. It was the end of an era, and for those who had built their entire identities around serving the crown in its grandest form, it was a bitter, unforgivable pill to swallow. However, others, exhausted by the impossible logistics of operating vast, inefficient palaces, breathed a quiet sigh of relief. They saw the move as a welcome shift towards a more manageable and human-scale operation. But the resentment from the old guard was palpable. They felt that by rejecting the traditional model of royal life, William and Catherine were not just rejecting a building, they were rejecting the people who had kept the royal machine running for centuries. The anger, though subtle and unspoken, revealed just how profoundly this one decision had upended the entire ecosystem of the monarchy. It was a quiet mutiny, brewing below stairs. The most chilling question remains unanswered. Is Royal Lodge truly a forever home, or is it merely the next move in a brilliant, long-term power play? Sources close to the couple insist their goal is to remain in Windsor for decades, to give their children the stability they never had. Royal Lodge is presented as a permanent fortress, a place where Prince George can grow into the role he never chose, shielded from the toxic glare of the public eye. But others see a far more calculated and ruthless strategy at play. By shunning the traditional seats of power and carefully crafting an image of a relatable, fiscally responsible family man, Prince William is quietly positioning himself as a king in waiting for the 21st century. He is building a shadow court at Windsor, a new center of gravity within the monarchy that operates on his terms, not his father's. Royal Lodge is both a shelter and a headquarters. From this private, fortified position, he can control his own narrative and slowly, methodically, redefine what it means to be a monarch. This is not a retreat. It is a consolidation of power. It is the final, crucial gambit in a quiet revolution that has been years in the making, a meticulously crafted plan to seize control of the crown's destiny long before he ever wears the crown itself. He isn't waiting his turn, he's taking it. As the doors of Adelaide Cottage close for the last time and a new chapter begins at Royal Lodge, one thing is devastatingly clear. The monarchy will never be the same. This move was more than a simple relocation. It was an irreversible break with the past. William and Catherine have drawn a new blueprint for the crown, one built on the principles of privacy, independence, and personal survival over the demands of public spectacle. They have gambled everything on the radical belief that for the monarchy to have a future, it must shed the heavy, suffocating skin of its imperial past. The biggest bombshell of all is not the house they chose, but the institution they so brazenly defied. They have proven that the heir to the throne can operate outside the established system, that tradition is no longer absolute, and that the future of the House of Windsor will be forged not in the grand palaces of London, but in the quiet, fortified privacy of their own choosing. Whether this act of fierce resistance will save the monarchy or ultimately shatter its ancient mystique is the terrifying question that now hangs over the kingdom. They have remade the crown in their own image, and Britain has no choice but to live with the consequences of their quiet but brutal revolution. Thank you for watching this video. Let us know your thoughts on this royal bombshell in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe for more videos from Majesty Uncovered. Video description. *** illustration image prompts. ***1. A cold, official Kensington Palace press release typed on heavy cream parchment, sitting on a polished mahogany desk. The room is dark, illuminated only by a single beam of dramatic, cinematic light from a window, catching dust motes in the air. The words "abandoning Adelaide Cottage" are in sharp focus, while the rest of the text is slightly blurred. R16-9, S750 style RAW, Q2, 2. A low-angle, wide shot of Prince William, seen from behind, looking out a large window of Adelaide Cottage towards the imposing silhouette of Windsor Castle in the distance at dusk. His shoulders are tense, his posture reflecting immense pressure and turmoil, creating a sense of isolation and being trapped between two worlds. The lighting is moody and somber, with deep shadows and cool blue tones. AR16-9, S750, style RAW, Q2, 3. An ultra-photorealistic close-up on Princess Catherine's face, her expression a mixture of quiet determination and deep sadness. She is packing a small, simple wooden toy into a cardboard box, her hands gentle but firm. The lighting is soft and warm, coming from a nearby lamp, but the background is dark and indistinct, symbolizing her escape from the gilded prison of royal life. AR16-9, S750, style RAW, Q2, 4. A cinematic shot down a long, opulent corridor inside Buckingham Palace, with two royal aides whispering conspiratorially in the foreground, their faces obscured by shadow. Far in the distance, the silhouette of King Charles can be seen standing alone in a brightly lit doorway, his figure small and isolated, conveying a sense of losing control. The atmosphere is tense and filled with intrigue. R16-9, S750, style RAW, Q2. Number 5. A dramatic split-screen image. On the left, the grand, gold-encrusted gates of Kensington Palace in bright daylight. On the right, the humble, ivy-covered wooden door of Adelaide Cottage at twilight. The contrast is stark, highlighting the shocking trade-down and the hidden reasons behind the family's flight from London. AR16.9, S750, style RAW, Q2, 6. An intimate, heart-wrenching shot of Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis looking out the backseat window of a car as they drive away from their home. Their faces show a subtle confusion and sadness. The focus is on their reflections in the glass, with the image of Adelaide Cottage receding and blurring behind them. AR16.9, S750, style RAW, Q2, illustration, image prompts 16:9, 1080p. Asterisk, asterisk, SEO tags, asterisk, asterisk. Royal family, Prince William, Princess Catherine, Kate Middleton, King Charles, Royal Crisis, Royal Secrets, British Monarchy, Adelaide Cottage, Kensington Palace, Royal Family News, Prince of Wales, Windsor, Royal Drama, Buckingham Palace, Royal Family Documentary, Royal Betrayal, Untold Stories, Royal Feud. SEO tags, English. Asterisk, asterisk, thumbnail, prompts, asterisk, asterisk. 1. Extreme close-up split screen of Prince William and King Charles. William's face is stone-cold and determined, looking directly forward. Charles's face is in profile, showing deep concern and disappointment. A jagged, glowing crack separates their faces, symbolizing the deep rift between them. AR16.9, S750, style RAW, Q.2, 2. An ultra-photorealistic image of a golden key with the royal crest, broken in half, lying on the stone steps of a palace. The lighting is dramatic and shadowy, with a single spotlight on the broken key, symbolizing a permanent break from tradition and the family. AR16-9 S750, style RAW, 2-2. 3. Princess Catherine, looking over her shoulder with a worried, anxious expression, as if she's being followed. She is walking away from a grand, imposing palace gate in the background, which is slightly out of focus. The headline text would overlay this, emphasizing her escape. AR16.9 S750, style RAW, Q2. 4. A dramatic, eye-level shot of a for sale sign hammered into the pristine lawn in front of the charming Adelaide Cottage. The sign is weathered and looks out of place, creating a shocking visual question for the viewer. The sky is overcast and gloomy. 10R 16:9 S750, style RAW, Q2. 5. A powerful symbolic image of Prince William turning his back to the camera and walking down a simple country path. Away from the magnificent, looming silhouette of Buckingham Palace in the background, he is walking towards a smaller, more humble house in the distance, representing his choice to defy the institution. AR 16:9, S750, style RAW, Q2, thumbnail prompts 16:9, 1080p. Engaging thumbnail concepts. Generation summary. Channel name used. Majesti uncovered. Opening hook, generated 10 to 20 second attention grabber. Total characters, 30034. Chapters generated. 18. Language. English. Knowledge sections applied. 12/12. Cultural elements preserved. Yes. Enhanced features. Complete package ready.